Blood drips from the judge's bench. Shadows twist like vipers in a hidden chamber beneath Chicago. Hercule Poirot, mustache twitching, faces the untouchable gangsters who laugh at death itself. Welcome to the secret courtroom where justice twists into nightmare. Grab your cup of tea, take a seat, and savor every twist. If this grips you already, smash, subscribe. Your support fuels our stories. Tell us in the comments from where you are watching this. Chapter 1. The summons Hercule Poirot sat in his London flat, the fire crackling softly against the chill of autumn rain. His little grey cells hummed with the quiet satisfaction of a case neatly solved. A silver tray held his favourite tisane, steam curling like secrets unspoken. Then came the knock, sharp and insistent like fate rapping at heaven's door. Georges. His valet opened the door to reveal a man in a trench coat, soaked through, eyes burning with desperation. "Monsieur Poirot," the stranger gasped. "I am Eliot Ness. You must come to America now. The Untouchables, they are not untouchable. Something darker binds them, a courtroom no man escapes." Poirot raised one perfect eyebrow. "Mon ami," he said calmly, "I solve murders, not chase gangsters across oceans." But Ness leaned in, voice dropping to a whisper. "This is no ordinary trial. It happens in secret beneath the city. Al Capone himself sits in the jury box. And the judge, he is death incarnate. Refuse and London burns tomorrow." Poirot sipped his tisane, considering. "Very well," he murmured. "The little grey cells demand I accept." The RMS Queen Mary sliced through Atlantic waves like a knife through butter. Poirot paced the deck, wind whipping his cape collar turned up against the spray. Ness stood beside him, chain-smoking cigarettes, ash flying into the void. "Tell me more of this secret courtroom," Poirot demanded, his accent crisp as fresh linen. Ness exhaled smoke curling like ghosts. "It started in 1929, after the St. Valentine's Day massacre. Capone's men gunned down rivals in a garage, blood painting the walls. But the souls didn't rest. They formed a court invisible to the living. Gangsters, murderers, crooked cops, all summoned when their crimes cry out. No escape. The trial lasts one night. Verdict is eternal." Ness crushed his cigarette. "I've raided speakeasies, busted Capone's breweries, but this courtroom, it judges us all. Last week, one of my best men vanished mid-raid. Found him next dawn, grey-faced, whispering of a gavel that cracks souls." Poirot nodded, eyes sharp as diamonds. A courtroom of the damned. Intriguing. "But why me, Hercule Poirot?" Ness grinned wolfishly. "Because you're the best detective alive. And Capone, he fears no one but you." They docked in New York, then boarded a rattling train to Chicago. The city sprawled like a beast under iron skies, skyscrapers clawing at clouds, smokestacks belching defiance. Ness led Poirot through back alleys, dodging puddles that reflected neon sins. Jazz spilled from hidden doors, laughter laced with desperation. At last, they reached a nondescript warehouse, doors guarded by Ness' burly untouchables, Tommy guns slung low. Inside, stairs plunged into earth, damp air thick with mold and whispers. Torches flickered on walls etched with names: Bugs, Moran, Dion, O'Banion, all Capone's fallen foes. Poirot adjusted his hat. "This is no ordinary basement, mon ami. It pulses with malice." Ness nodded grimly. "Deeper we go." The group descended, single file, boots echoing like heartbeats. Rats' scattered shadows danced mockingly. Then a wall slid open, revealing the secret courtroom. Imagine, if you can, a cavern vast as a cathedral carved from bedrock. Torches burned eternal flames, casting blood-red glows. High above, a dome cracked like a skull's crown. Center stage, a judge's bench of black obsidian veined with gold. Behind it, a throne empty yet throbbing with presence. To the left, jury box, 12 seats occupied by spectres, faces half flesh, half bone, grinning with yellowed teeth. Right side, witness stand chained to floor, pulsing with faint glows. And facing it all, defendant's dock surrounded by iron spikes, dripping rust that smelled of blood. Poirot stepped forward, air heavy pressing lungs. "Magnificent," he breathed. "And terrible," Ness pointed. "There sits the jury, Capone's victims. Moran glares from seat 1, his bullet-riddled chest oozing forever. O'Banion in 2 throats slit ear to ear. They judge the living now." Poirot circled slowly, noting details. Footprints in dust too fresh, whispers forming words, guilty, innocent, oblivion. Suddenly, the torches flared. A wind howled from nowhere, extinguishing flames, plunging all into black. Then light bloomed crimson from the throne. He appeared, the judge, tall as nightmares, cloaked in fog face hidden by hood bones clacking beneath. In one skeletal hand a gavel carved from human femur. Eyes twin coals burning judgment. "Who dares enter my domain?" the voice boomed, shaking stones. Ness paled but stood firm. "Elliot Ness, agent of the law. I bring Hercule Poirot to face the Untouchables." The judge laughed, thunder rolling. "Poirot, the Belgian dandy. You think your grey cells pierce my veil? Sit, defendants." The trial begins at midnight. Chains rattled. From shadows emerged the Untouchables, Capone's elite. 8 killers in pinstripe suits, faces, scarred grins feral. Frank Nitti stepped first, slick hair eyes like snakes. Then Jack McGurn, the piano-playing assassin, fingers twitching. The others followed: Pete Gussenberg, Adam Heyer, all legends of blood. They took the dock, laughing, jeering. Nitti spat. "This clown can't touch us." McGurn smirked. "Send him back to tea parties." Poirot took his place at a rough-hewn table, quill and paper ready. Ness beside him sweating. The judge banged gavel crack, echoing like breaking bones. Court is convened. Charge 1 murder of 7 innocent St. Valentine's Day. Witness 1 call, Bugs Moran. A spectre rose from jury, shambling forward, chest a ruin of holes. He pointed at the dock. "They gunned us down like dogs. Capone's orders." Nitti laughed. "Prove it, ghost." Moran turned to Poirot. "Help me, detective. See the truth." Poirot leaned forward, eyes narrowing. "Describe the killer's attire." Moran rasped. "Pinstripes, fedoras, one with scar on cheek." Poirot nodded, scribbling. "And the garage address?" Moran whispered it. Poirot smiled faintly. "Excellent. But wait, there is more." He rose, addressing the judge. "Permission to question the accused." "Granted," the judge intoned, amused. Poirot faced Nitti. "Monsieur, you claim innocence?" Nitti sneered. "Damn right." Poirot twirled mustache, then explained this. He held up a photo Ness had slipped him moments before. A matchbook from the garage inscribed FN Love Mary. Nitti small. Nitti blanched. "Where do you get that?" Poirot shrugged. "Little grey cells, mon ami." The jury murmured, spectres leaning in. McGurn jumped up. "Lies, all lies." Poirot turned smoothly. "And you, Jack McGurn, killer with the silver tongue. Witnesses saw you fleeing the scene, piano fingers stained red." McGurn paled. "Coincidence?" Poirot chuckled. "Coincidence that your alibi's wife sings like canary under pressure?" Ness grinned. "We got her statement locked tight." The dock erupted, curses flying. The judge banged gavel, silencing all. Evidence mounts. But the night is young. Recess till the witching hour. As shadows deepened, Poirot conferred with Ness. "This is no mere trial, mon ami. Forces beyond play here. Look, the jury shifts uneasy." Ness frowned. "You mean Capone himself?" Poirot nodded. He pulled strings from his cell. But how? Suddenly, an Untouchable lunged at Poirot, knife flashing. Ness fired, Tommy gun barking, stitching the wall. The attacker dissolved into smoke, reforming, laughing. "Supernatural," Poirot murmured. "We need proof beyond flesh." He slipped away into tunnels, Ness protesting. "Find the judge's secret, mon ami." Poirot vanished into dark flashlight beam dancing. He crawled through veins of earth, finding chambers lined with ledgers, names, dates, crimes. One book glowed, the Ledger of Souls. He opened it, pages, flipping alone, stopping at Capone's entry. Not guilty, the verdict read, scrawled in blood. But beneath crossed out eternal torment. "Someone tampered," Poirot whispered. "The judge is bought." Back in court, torches blazed anew. The judge loomed larger. "Charge 2, corruption of justice." Witness 2, called the widow O'Banion. Another spectre glided forward, veil-torn eyes hollow. "They poisoned my husband," she wailed. "Capone's brew in his whiskey." Poirot stood. Madame described the bottle. Green glass skull label. Poirot snapped fingers. Ness produced Exhibit B. Ness held up a vial identical. "Seized from Capone's stash. Lab tests confirm arsenic." The jury roared approval, ghosts pounding seats. Nitti shouted, "Frame job." Poirot whirled. "Silence, I have more." He projected lantern slide shadows, huge on wall. blueprints of the secret courtroom marked with X's Capone's bribes to the judge. How? Ness whispered. Little birds sing mon ami. The dock quaked, Untouchables shrinking. McGurn whimpered. It wasn't us, boss ordered it. Midnight struck bells tolling from nowhere. The judge rose gavel high. Verdict time approaches. But first cross-examination finale. Poirot faced the dock, eyes blazing. Gentlemen, you are untouchable by bullets by law, but not by truth. Exhibit C, the blood oath. He unveiled a dagger-crusted crimson Capone's initials, dipped in St. Valentine's victim's blood-swearing loyalty to evil. Nitti reached for it, chains burning flesh. Lies, Poirot smiled coldly. Your fingerprints grace it fresh as today. Science never lies. The jury stood as one chanting guilty, guilty. The judge hesitated, hood flickering. Enough, he thundered. Trial pauses till dawn. But Poirot justice waits for no man. As the court dimmed, Poirot slipped Ness a note. Prepare for Act 2. The real judge emerges soon. Ness nodded, eyes wide. This ain't just gangsters, Hercule. It's hell itself. Poirot patted his shoulder. Precisely, mon ami. And I shall tidy it neat as a pin. Shadows closed in whispers, promising more blood, more twists. The secret courtroom held its breath, waiting for the grey cell's masterstroke. In the flickering torchlight, Poirot examined every crack, every shadow. He found a loose stone behind the judge's throne, prying it free. Inside a small vial, swirling black liquid. Essence of the damned, he murmured, pocketing it. Returning to Ness, he whispered, This buys the judge's favour. Capone's gift. Ness whistled low. Bust Capone, we bust the court. But how get to him? Poirot tapped temple. Patience. The trial reveals all. The Untouchables huddled in their dock, plotting in hisses. Nitti to McGurn. We jump the Belgian at recess, gut him like fish. McGurn nodded eager. But Gusenberg shook head, boss, says wait. Hez and Alcatraz, this goes south we fry. Nitti snarled. Screw the boss. We're untouchable. Little did they know. Poirot's ears caught every word. Grey cells spinning webs. Dawn crept near, but the court ignored time. The judge reconvened, banging gavel like doom. Charge 3 betrayal of brothers. Witness 3 call Pete Gusenberg. The ghost limped forward, belly shot open, spilling mist. They left me to die, he growled. Capone's orders no survivors. Poirot interjected. Monsieur, did one hesitate? Gusenberg nodded. Yeah, the kid Hayer. Tears in eyes. Said sorry before firing. Poirot turned to Doc. Adam Hayer stepped forward. The young untouchable trembled. I had to. Family threatened, Poirot soft-voiced. Fear is chain easily broken. Testify truth and break free. Hayer glanced at Judge, who nodded imperceptibly. Okay, he blurted. Capone planned it all. Wanted Moran gone. I pulled trigger on 3. The dock exploded, Nitti lunging at Hayer, fists flying. Guard spectres hauled him back. Poirot seized moment. Behold the fracture. Untouchables devour own. Exhibit D. Hayer's confession signed, witnessed by Ness. The jury nodded approvingly. Score shifts. The judge grew agitated, hood smoking. Lies fabrications. Poirot bowed mockingly. As you say, Your Honour. But truth outs always. He signalled Ness, who wheeled in a phonograph. Record played Capone's voice, tinny furious. Wipe him out, no witnesses. Bugs is done. Gasps echoed. Proven, the judge roared. But trial continues. Hours blurred, tortures, endless fuel. Poirot grilled, each untouchable peeling lies like onions. Nitti cracked, admitting bribes. McGurn sobbed over his piano alibi, false as painted lady. One by one they crumbled under grey cell assault. Ness watched in awe. You're a wizard, Hercule. Poirot chuckled. Merely orderly mind, mon ami. As chapter neared end, the judge stood, final charge looming. Conspiracy against the court itself. Poirot prepared his trap heart steady. The secret courtroom teetered on edge of revelation. What lay ahead in chapter 2 would shatter all illusions. But for now the Belgian detective held the threads tight. Chapter 2. The Phantom Prosecutor. The judge lifted his gavel, then froze mid-swing. From the deepest tunnel came footsteps measured and deliberate. Each tap rang like a coffin nail driven home. Torches guttered low, casting the cavern in bruised purple. A figure emerged, cloaked in midnight blue face, hidden behind a porcelain mask smooth as bone. White gloves held a briefcase of polished ebony. The stranger placed it on the prosecution table, snapped the locks open, and removed a single red rose, dripping dew, that hissed on stone. The Untouchables shrank back, chains rattling like dry bones. Nitti hissed, "Who the hell is that?" The judge answered, voice cracking for the first time. The prosecutor. "He serves no man, only the court." The masked figure spoke, voice soft as silk. "Yet carrying to every shadow I accuse the Untouchables of perverting eternal justice. Let the second act begin." Poirot watched fascinated as the prosecutor laid out evidence with surgical grace. First, a stack of photographs, grainy yet sharp, showing Nitti shaking hands with the judge in a moonlit alley. Next, a ledger page torn from the court's own book, inked with fresh bribes in Capone's hand. Then a wax cylinder recording the judge's whisper, promising Nitti freedom for a price. The jury leaned forward, spectral eyes glowing. The prosecutor turned to Poirot. "You opened the door, detective. I walk through. Together we end this charade." Poirot inclined his head. "Respect mon adversaire. But remember, I seek truth, not spectacle." The prosecutor bowed, mask gleaming. "Let truth be our blade." Cross-examination ignited like wildfire. The prosecutor called Nitti first. "Stand." Nitti rose, chains clinking. "You paid the judge with souls harvested from your victims. Deny it." Nitti spat. "I paid with cash, nothing more." The prosecutor produced a glass jar. Inside, swirling mist formed screaming faces. "These are the echoes you traded. Recognize them." Nitti recoiled, the jar reflecting his own terrified eyes. The jury murmured louder. Poirot interjected gently, "Allow me." He took the jar, held it to torchlight. "See the patterns. Each soul bears a bullet wound matching St. Valentine's. Science again, mon ami." Nitti slumped, defeated. McGurn took the stand, neck's legs shaking. The prosecutor slid a piano key across the table, ivory-stained, rust-brown. "Play it, killer." McGurn's fingers trembled over invisible keys. "I can't." The prosecutor pressed the key into his palm. "Then remember the night you played for Capone while Moran bled out in the next room." The key grew hot, burning flesh. McGurn screamed, dropping it. The scent of scorched skin filled the air. Confession followed like water from a broken dam. "I played to drown the screams. Capone laughed, said it was my best gig." The jury hissed, steam rising from their wounds. One by one, the Untouchables faced the masked avenger. Pete Gusenberg admitted selling court secrets for a bottle of rye. Adam Hayer wept, revealing he smuggled the judge's bribes sewn inside teddy bears for his daughter. Each confession carved deeper into the court's stone heart. The judge gripped his throne, knuckles white beneath gloves of shadow. Poirot observed every twitch, every flicker in the hood. The prosecutor noticed too. "Your Honor, you grow restless, afraid your puppet strings snap." The judge banged gavel so hard the femur cracked. "Silence. I control this court." The prosecutor laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Control. Watch." He opened the briefcase again, removing a mirror framed in human teeth. Held it toward the judge. "Look upon your master." The hood rippled, revealing for an instant Al Capone's grinning face, scarred and syphilitic. Gasps echoed. The jury stood roaring. The judge shrank, cloak deflating. Capone's voice issued from the hood, "Weak now, you can't prove." The prosecutor smashed the mirror shards, flying like ice. "Proof is the court itself, built on your lies." Ness stepped forward, gun drawn. "Capone, you're under arrest, even if I drag you from hell." The judge Capone screamed, merging voices, twisting. God sees them. But the spectral guards turned faces, blank eyes on the jury, who nodded. Chains flew from the dock, wrapping the throne tight. Poirot raised a hand. "Wait. One piece remains." He approached the throne, produced the vial of black liquid stolen earlier. "This is your leash, Capone. The essence binding judge to master." He uncorked it, poured it onto the cracked gavel. Smoke billowed, black and screaming. The hood tore away, fully revealing Capone chained to the throne, flesh rotting yet alive. "How?" the prosecutor whispered. Poirot smiled. Death refused him. "The court keeps him judge and prisoner until balance restores." Capone snarled. "You think this ends me? I built Chicago on blood." The prosecutor placed the rose on the bench. "Blood wilts. Justice blooms. The jury deliberated in silence, faces shifting from rage to sorrow. Bugs Moran spoke first. "We vote exile, not death. Let them wander the tunnels forever, neither living nor dead." O'Banion nodded. "Strip their names." "No one remembers the Untouchables." The others agreed, voices harmonizing like a dirge. The Judge Capone lunged, chains biting deep. "No, I am legend." Poirot shook his head. "Legends fade when truth speaks louder." The prosecutor closed the briefcase. Sentence passed. "The court will remake itself clean." Torches flared white hot. The Untouchables screamed as their bodies dissolved into smoke sucked into the walls. Names etched there. Nitty McGurn Hare vanished letter by letter. Capone thrashed, reduced to a howling skull atop the throne. The prosecutor turned to Poirot. "You came for justice. Take it." The cavern shuddered, stones grinding. New benches rose clean and gleaming. The jury seats filled with fresh spectres, victims of other crimes, eyes bright with purpose. The throne cracked, skull rolling into dust. A new judge appeared, robed in simple black face, kind yet stern. "Balance," the voice said, soft as sunrise. Ness holstered his gun, all plain. "It's over." Poirot adjusted his tie. "No, mon ami. It transforms. The secret courtroom endures, but now serves truth." The prosecutor removed the mask, revealing a woman. Pale, beautiful eyes, ancient as the city. "Thank you, detective. My brother was the first victim. His soul rested the moment you arrived." Poirot bowed. "Madame, your courage lit the way." She smiled, fading into light. The cavern brightened, dawn filtering through cracks above. Though miles of earth separated them from sky. Poirot and Ness climbed the stairs. The warehouse now ordinary dust motes dancing in morning sun. Outside, Chicago bustled, unaware of the nightmare purged beneath. Ness lit a cigarette, hand steady for the first time. "What now, Hercule?" Poirot gazed at the skyline. "Tea, mon ami." "And perhaps a new case." The little grey cells never rest. They shook hands, parting, as the city woke to a cleaner shadow. But deep below, the new judge raised a gavel of oak. A fresh name glowed on the ledger, and the secret courtroom waited patient as stone for the next soul bold enough to demand justice in the dark. Chapter 3. The echo of Capone, the city above forgot fast. Newspapers screamed of raids and arrests, but never of the cavern that swallowed 8 names whole. Ness drove Poirot through streets, slick with October rain, past speakeasies shuttered by dawn, past billboards, promising lucky strikes and better days. Steam rose from manholes like breath of the underworld. Ness killed the engine outside a diner glowing neon green. Coffee Hercule. Strong enough to wake the dead. Poirot stepped out, coat button to throat. "Dead do not need coffee, mon ami. They need closure." Inside, the diner smelled of bacon and regret. A jukebox played low and mournful. They took a booth, cracked red vinyl, sighing under weight. A waitress poured without asking, eyes hollow from double shifts. Ness stirred sugar endless circles. "You think it's really gone?" "The court." Poirot sipped black, no sugar. "Nothing is gone. Only changed, like scar tissue over wound." Night fell sudden as a guillotine. Poirot retired to a modest hotel room, curtains drawn tight. He laid out his tools on the dresser. Magnifying glass notebook, fountain pen aligned with military precision. Sleep came, shallow dreams of gavels and roses. At 3 the phone rang, shrill enough to split bone. Ness' voice cracked through static. "Get to the river, now!" Something rose. Poirot, dressed in seconds cape, swirling. The cab ride blurred past warehouses and skeletal bridges. Ness waited on the bank, flashlight cutting fog. "Look." He pointed. Water churned, black and furious. Shapes moved beneath, too large for fish. Poirot leaned over railing, breath fogging. Faces pressed against the surface, Nitty McGurn mouths open in silent screams. Their eyes locked on him, pleading, accusing. Then the current dragged them under. Ness whispered, "They're not gone, just relocated." Back in the warehouse, the hidden door stood ajar. Stairs descended into warmth, not damp. Torches burned blue, now steady and cold. The cavern had grown cathedral, vast pillars of ice replacing stone. The new judge sat on a throne of frost gavel, resting across knees. Jury box held 12 fresh ghosts, children in rags, eyes ancient. The defendant dock stood empty, chains coiled like sleeping snakes. The judge spoke, voice gentle yet vast. "Welcome back, detective." The balance tilts again. Poirot stepped forward, boots crunching frost. "You promised renewal." The judge inclined head. "Renewal requires sacrifice. Capone left a seed. It flowers in living veins." Ness drew his gun instinct. "Where?" The judge pointed upward. "In the heart of the city. A man who drank the black essence. He believes himself heir." They emerged into Michigan Avenue midnight traffic, frozen solid. Cars stood silent. Drivers slumped over wheels, eyes milk white. Pedestrians mid-step, mouths agape. A single figure walked the center-line suit, immaculate shoes polished to mirrors. Face shifted every heartbeat. Capone Nitti, the prosecutor, the child ghosts. He carried a briefcase of ice. "Stop," the figure called, voice layered like choir. "I am the echo, born of spilled blood and unfinished verdict." Poirot advanced slowly. "You are echo indeed." Reflection without source. The echo smiled, teeth too many. "I offer power. Join me. Rule the court eternal." Ness raised gun. "Over my dead body." The echo laughed. "Exactly." Ice spread from his feet, cracking pavement, climbing lampposts. Poirot felt cold bite bone. He reached into pocket fingers, closing on the corked vial now frozen solid. The last drop of essence. He hurled it at the echo. Glass shattered, liquid hissing into steam. The echo staggered, face cycling faster. Capone screaming, Nitti weeping. Poirot shouted the names of the 8 dissolved untouchables, each syllable a hammer blow. The ice retreated. The echo shrank, folding inward, until only a boy remained, no older than 10, suit hanging loose. He looked at Poirot, tears freezing on cheeks. "I just wanted my pa back." Pa was Nitti. The court took him. I drank the black to bring him home. Poirot knelt eye level. "Your father chose his path, Petit. Let him go." The boy nodded once, then crumbled into snow, carried away by sudden wind. Traffic roared back to life, horns blaring, drivers cursing. Ness lowered gun, trembling. "A kid, all of it." Poirot stood brushing frost from coat. "Evil wears many faces, mon ami. Even innocence corrupted." They walked the avenue, now clear, the diner sign, flickering welcome. Inside, the waitress poured coffee as if no time passed. Poirot added 1 sugar stirred clockwise exactly 7 times. Ness watched. "What happens now?" Poirot sipped. "The court sleeps, but courts wake hungry. We remain vigilant." Far below, the new judge closed the ledger. Ink-dried name secure. The throne of frost melted into stone, warm and ordinary. The child ghost smiled, fading into light. 1 pillar remained etched with fresh words. Echo silenced. Balance held. For now. Poirot paid the bill, left a tip generous as mercy. Outside, dawn painted the sky bruised purple and gold. Ness offered a ride back to the hotel. Poirot declined. "I walk. The little grey cells require motion." Ness nodded, understanding. "If it stirs again." Poirot raised a gloved hand. "You will call." "And I will answer." He melted into the crowd, just another small man in a big coat. But the city felt his passage like a held breath released. Chapter 4. The ledger's whisper. Poirot left the diner at first light, the air sharp with coal smoke and river rot. His shoes clicked against wet pavement, each step measured like a metronome. The little grey cells churned, not with the echo boy, but with the ledger he had glimpsed in the frost-thrown chamber. Names had glowed there, fresh and pulsing as if written in living blood. One name in particular burned behind his eyes. Frank Galluccio, a nobody in Capone's machine, yet the letters had shimmered gold. Gold meant unfinished business. Gold meant the court still hungered. He found a payphone outside a pawnshop receiver, cold against his ear. "Operator, connect me to the Federal Building, Chicago. Elliot Ness." The line crackled. Then Ness answered, voice thick with sleep and bourbon. "Hercule, it's 5 in the morning." Poirot ignored pleasantries. "Galluccio Frank, tell me everything." A pause, then rustle of papers. "Small-time enforcer cut Capone's face in 19 over a dame. Got a pass because Scarface respected the balls. Vanished after the massacre. Thought drowned in the lake." Poirot nodded to himself. He breathed still. "Find him." Ness exhaled, on it. "Meet me at the morgue noon." Something washed up. The Cook County morgue squatted behind iron gates, smell of formaldehyde leaking through brick. Ness waited in the alley, coat collar up, cigarette glowing like a tiny sun. Inside, the attendant, a thin man with nicotine fingers, led them past steel drawers to a slab. Sheet pulled back revealed a corpse, bloated and blue lips split in a rictus grin. Not Galluccio, Ness muttered. But look. He lifted the dead man's hand, fingers webbed with scar tissue shaped like a ledger page. Words burned into flesh. I owe the court. Poirot bent close, magnifying glass catching the light. Ink beneath skin injected post-mortem. The message is clear, mon ami. Someone collects. They followed the trail to a flophouse on South Halstead, wallpaper, peeling like old skin. Room 7 stank of camphor and despair. Galluccio sat on the bed, fully dressed suit, pressed shoes, shined eyes wide and unblinking. A leather-bound ledger lay open on his lap, pages blank yet moving as if wind turned them. He did not look up when they entered. I waited, he rasped, voice paper dry. The court calls its debts. Poirot sat opposite chair, creaking. You owe what exactly? Galluccio finally met his gaze, pupils pinpricks. One slice, one life. I cut Capone to save a girl. The court took the girl instead. Now it wants the blade returned in flesh. Ness checked the room, gun drawn. No weapons. Galluccio lifted his right hand. Palm sliced open, fresh blood dripping onto the ledger. Letters formed. Paid in full. The wound sealed before their eyes, skin knitting smooth. The ledger snapped shut. Galluccio stood moving like a marionette. Out the window, he whispered. They climbed fire escape to the roof city, sprawling below smokestacks, coughing into pale sky. Galluccio walked the ledge, arms out, balance perfect. Poirot followed, careful. Tell me of the girl. Name was Rose O'Malley. Sang at the Green Mill. Capone wanted her. I said no. Knife came out. One cut across his cheek. He laughed, said I had guts. Gave me a job. Rose vanished that night. Found her in the river throat, opened ear to ear. Ledger appeared on my pillow next morning. First page blank. Every year on the anniversary a name appears. I cross it off with blood. Last name is mine. Wind whipped Poirot's coat. How many names? Galluccio turned pages showing crimson thumbprints. 47. All Capone's enemies. All dead by my hand or the river's. Tonight the book ends. He stepped off the ledge. Ness lunged, but Poirot held him back. They watched Galluccio fall slow, as a feather body dissolving into black script letters swirling upward, spelling Rose across the clouds. The ledger fluttered down, landing open at Poirot's feet. Final page now. Blank. Back in the hotel, Poirot laid the ledger on the table beside his tisane. Steam curled around the cover like curious fingers. He opened it carefully, pages crisp as frost. Ink bloomed, sudden and wet. New trial convened. Defendant, Hercule Poirot. Charge, interference. He closed it gently. So the court evolves. Ness burst in breathless. Galluccio's body gone. Rooftop empty, just ash. Poirot poured tea for two. Then we attend mon ami. But this time, I choose the battlefield. They descended once more into the warehouse, the hidden door now carved with roses' thorns, dripping real blood. Stairs spiraled deeper than memory stone, warm as living skin. Torches burned rose-gold scent of petals and decay. The cavern had become a garden, underground vines, thick as pythons, blooming black roses, petals, velvet soft centers weeping crimson. The frost throne gone, replaced by a bower of thorns. The new judge stood robed in petals, face veiled by living blooms. Jury box held 47 ghosts, each bearing a slash across the throat eyes, gentle yet merciless. The defendant dock weighted chains replaced by vines pulsing slow. Poirot stepped forward, cane-tapping rhythm. I accept the summons, Your Honour, but I bring countercharge. The court itself perverts justice by contract. The judge tilted, head petals parting to reveal a woman's face. Rose O'Malley, older eyes, ancient. You speak, bold detective. State your case. Poirot opened the ledger, now heavy as guilt. Exhibit A. 47 murders compelled by fear, not choice. Exhibit B. The original debt paid by an innocent. Rose's fingers brushed the book vines, tightening. Galluccio acted to save me. The court twisted love into ledger. Poirot continued. Exhibit C. The Echo Boy corrupted by grief. The court feeds on sorrow, not sin. Ness moved to the witness stand, vines curling around ankles, gentle yet firm. I saw a child become monster because the court offered false hope. Release the ledger. Break the chain. The jury whispered agreement, throats glowing soft. Rose lifted a hand. The garden trembled. You ask mercy for the damned. Poirot met her gaze. I ask balance. Mercy without justice is chaos. Justice without mercy is tyranny. Burn the book. Let the dead choose. Silence stretched thick as honey. Then Rose smiled sad and radiant. She took the ledger from Poirot's hands, held it high. Vines surged, wrapping tight. Flames erupted, not hot but cold blue and pure. The ledger burned slow pages, curling into butterflies of ash. Each ghost caught one, pressed it to their wound. Light flared. When it faded, the garden stood empty save for Rose. She stepped down, thorns falling away. I am released. So are they. The cavern sighed, collapsing gently into soft earth. Dawn light filtered through new cracks above birdsong, impossible yet real. Poirot and Ness emerged into morning sun, the warehouse now a vacant lot, daisies pushing through concrete. Ness lit a cigarette, hands steady. Think that's the last. Poirot watched a butterfly land on his glove wings, inscribed with tiny, perfect handwriting. Thank you. No mon ami. Courts never end. They only change judges. He tipped his hat to the sky and walked toward the lake, the little grey cells already humming with the next impossible case. Chapter 5. The Jury of One. The lake wind carried the smell of fish and diesel. Poirot stood on the breakwater coat, flapping like a sail, his eyes fixed on the horizon, where water met sky in a blade of silver. Ness had gone to file reports that would never mention roses or ledgers, only routine drownings and closed cases. The city believed the nightmare sealed. Poirot knew better. A single gull wheeled overhead, crying once, then diving straight into the waves. It did not resurface. He turned away, the little grey cells ticking like a watch wound too tight. That evening, a boy delivered an envelope to the hotel desk, thick cream paper sealed with black wax. Inside, a single card. Midnight, Navy Pier. Come alone. No signature, only a thumbprint in dried blood. Poirot tucked it into his waistcoat pocket beside the fountain pen that had once signed treaties and death warrants. He arrived early. The pier deserted save for creaking boats and the slap of waves against barnacled pylons. Fog rolled in thick as wool swallowing lights. A figure waited at the end bench, small hunched coat too large for the frame. Poirot approached Kane, silent on wet planks. The boy from the Echo, no older than 10, suit, still hanging loose eyes older than sin. You came, the child said, voice layered with every untouchable dissolved. Good. The court needs a new jury. It chose you. Poirot sat, keeping one plank between them. Explain, Petit. The boy lifted a hand palm up. In it rested a gavel no larger than a walnut carved from driftwood. The jury of one. One soul to judge all souls. No ghosts, no bribes, no appeals. You. Poirot studied the gavel veins of gold running through the wood like capillaries. And if I refuse, the boy closed fist, then the city drowns tonight. Every man, woman, child, Wade found wanting, sentenced by default. The lake rises. You saw the gull, first of many. Poirot felt the pier tremble, faintly water lapping higher than memory. He took the gavel. It pulsed, warm as a heart. Instantly, the fog peeled back, revealing the pier transformed into a vast circular deck, ringed by water, black as ink. 12 spotlights snapped on from nowhere, pinning Poirot in white glare. Around the circle stood doors, 144 in total, each numbered in glowing numerals. From the nearest door stepped a man in prison stripes, face obscured by shadow. Behind him a woman in furs clutching pearls. Then a priest, a bootlegger, a child with a teddy bear soaked red. They filed out, endless silent, forming a queue that snaked into darkness. The boy vanished, leaving Poirot alone with the gavel and the accused. The first door bore the number 1. It opened onto a speakeasy frozen mid-raid bottles, suspended mid-smash bullets, hanging like hornets. The prisoner stepped forward, stripes dissolving into a bartender's vest. Name Patrick O'Leary. Charge. Served poison hooch, killed 12. Evidence swirled in the air. Autopsy photos, green flesh-foaming mouths. Poirot raised the gavel. Guilty or innocent? The little grey cells raced. O'Leary whispered, I watered the gin to stretch it, never knew the wood alcohol. Ignorance, not malice. Poirot struck once. Innocent. The man dissolved into golden mist, sucked into the gavel. Door 1 slammed shut. Door 2 opened on a tenement fire escape. A mother clutched 2 infants, smoke billowing. Charge? Dropped them to save them, missed the net. Poirot saw the terror in her eyes, the split-second choice. Innocent. Missed. Door closed. The pace quickened. Door 3. Crooked cop took bribes, let Capone walk. Guilty. Black smoke poured from the gavel, spiraling into the lake. Door 4. Nurse Mercy killed terminal patients. Innocent. Door 5. Hitman for Moran. Guilty. Each strike echoed like thunder water, rising inch by inch, soaking. Poirot's shoes. By door 50, the queue stretched beyond sight. The gavel grew heavier, veins of gold, now crimson. Poirot's arm ached, yet he did not slow. A teenage boy, door 87, confessed to torching a rival gang's warehouse, not knowing orphans slept inside. Tears carved clean tracks through soot on his cheeks. Poirot hesitated, the cells screaming nuance. The boy looked up. I deserve it. Strike true. Poirot brought the gavel down. Guilty. The smoke coiled, thick, choking. The lake lapped his knees. Door 100 revealed Ness himself, trenchcoat, dripping eyes haunted. Charge. Shot an unarmed informant. Ness' voice raw. He was reaching for a gun, I swear. Poirot saw the memory flash, the informant's hand on a Bible, not a pistol. Innocent. Ness dissolved into light, the gavel flaring white. Water receded to ankles. The final door, 144, stood alone, taller than the rest, carved from shipwrecked timber. It opened slowly onto an empty courtroom, the original secret courtroom, torches guttering. On the judge's bench sat Poirot himself, moustache, perfect eyes, cold. The doppelganger spoke. You judge you. Charge pride. You believe your cell's infallible. Strike yourself and end the jury. Poirot faced his double gavel raised. The little grey cells whispered trap. He lowered the tiny hammer. I refuse. The doppelganger smiled exactly like him. Then the lake takes all. Water roared up a wall of black, closing over the pier. Poirot closed his eyes. He turned the gavel handle first, drove it into the deck like a stake. Wood met wood with a soundless crack. Light exploded from the point of impact, rippling outward. Every door slammed at once. The queue froze mid-step, then shattered into butterflies of ash and gold. The doppelganger screamed, melting. The lake fell back, revealing dry planks, moonlight clean. The gavel lay split in 2 halves, glowing. Between them, a single seed, no larger than a tear. Poirot pocketed the seed. The pier returned to normal, fog-lifting gulls crying once more. Dawn painted the water rose and pearl. He walked the length, counting doors, now only rust stains on wood. At the end, the boy waited no longer. A boy, but a young man in a bartender's vest. Patrick O'Leary, smiling shy. You broke the jury. We are free to choose our own sentences now. Poirot nodded. Mercy and justice in balance. O'Leary tipped an imaginary hat, then stepped into the lake, walking on water until he vanished over the horizon. Poirot returned to the hotel, the seed warm against his chest. He planted it in a teacup of soil on the windowsill, watered it with the last of his tisane. By noon, a shoot unfurled, tiny leaves veined with gold. He knew courts would rise again, in alleys, in boardrooms, in hearts. But the jury of one was no more. The little grey cells rested content for the first time since London. Outside Chicago, woke to another ordinary day, unaware that one small Belgian had judged the judges and found them wanting. Chapter 6. The chain of witnesses. Poirot watched the teacups seedling through the lace curtains, sunlight filtering in slants like golden bars. The plant grew fast leaves unfolding with veins that pulsed faint as a wrist. He dressed methodically, white shirt starched, black tie knotted precise. A knock came soft, yet urgent. Georges' voice through the door. Monsieur, the train leaves in 1 hour. Poirot smiled faintly. To Paris, then. But the city held one last debt. He slipped the teacup into his valise, padded with silk. Ness met him at Union Station platform, bustling with porters and farewells, steam hissing from the locomotive. Hercule, you look ready for home. Poirot adjusted his hat. Home waits, mon ami. But Chicago whispers farewell. Ness handed him a small package wrapped in oilcloth. Found this in Galluccio's room. Thought you'd want it. Poirot unwrapped it on the whim. Spot a silver chain necklace, links forged from melted Tommy gun barrels. Pendant a tiny hourglass filled with black sand that never fell. Wear it. Keeps the echoes quiet. Poirot clasped it around his neck, the metal cool against skin. Merci. The chain hummed approval. The train pulled out smooth as silk, Chicago shrinking to toy blocks. Poirot settled into his compartment, tisane steaming on the fold-down table. He opened the valise, the seedling now, knee-high roots, cracking porcelain. Impossible, he murmured. Then the chain warmed. Sand shifted in the hourglass, one grain trickling down. The compartment door locked itself, shades drew tight. A voice filled. The air not from air but from the chain itself, layered whispers of the dissolved. Witness us, detective. The chain of witnesses calls you. Walls dissolved into mist, revealing a long corridor, endless as memory lined with glass cases, each holding a figure frozen mid-motion. First case, a bootlegger, mid-pour bottle. Tilted liquor, frozen in arc. Second, a flapper dancer, legs kicked, high skirt billowing. Third, a priest, mid-blessing hand raised over cradle. They were the overlooked, the side players in Capone's opera lives, tangled in the Untouchables web. Poirot walked the corridor, chain glowing brighter with each step, hourglass half empty, the figures' stirred eyes opening one by one. The bootlegger spoke, first name Tommy Flannery. I brewed the poison hooch for Nitti. 12 dead at my still, but he forced me. Wife and kids in the crosshairs. Poirot nodded. Your hand poured. Your heart resisted. The glass cracked, Flannery, stepping free, chain link, snapping loose. Next, the flapper, Lola Montez. Danced for Capone at the Green Mill. Slipped Moran the tip that led to the massacre. Thought it a joke. 7 graves my punchline. Tears carved through rouge. Poirot touched her shoulder. Laughter hides fear. You paid in silence. Glass shattered, link freed. The priest, Father Malone, advanced case by case. Blessed the guns before St. Valentine's. Said it was holy work against the Irish scum. God forgave my tongue, not my hands. Poirot met his gaze. Absolution comes from deeds undone. Link snapped. The corridor shortened, witnesses pouring out stories, tumbling like dominoes. A cabbie who drove the killers to the garage. A seamstress who sewed the pinstripe suits stained red by dawn. A newsboy who sold papers with headlines that lied. Each confession a weight lifted, each link a chain broken. Midway the hourglass ran low, sand furious in the glass. A new figure emerged, not frozen but chained to her case-iron links thick as wrists. Rose O'Malley, again young, vibrant dress, sequined. But her eyes burned accusation. You freed me, detective, yet my chain binds tighter. Why? Poirot stepped close. Madame, your death started this. Tell me the missing thread. Rose rattled her links. Capone did not kill me. An untouchable did. The one who loved me. Frank Galluccio. He slit my throat to keep me from the boss. then cut Capone's face to hide his guilt. The ledger was his confession. Poirot froze little grey cells exploding stars. Galluccio the blade. Not the saviour. The chain scalded his neck, hourglass empty. Rose lunged, link stretching. Liar, she screamed. You judged him innocent. The witnesses halted, forming a wall, eyes turning cold. The corridor tilted, floor becoming ramp sliding toward abyss. Poirot gripped the chain, pulled hard. Sand reverse climbing back, grain by grain. He faced Rose. Exhibit A, your locket. He produced it from pocket gold heart engraved F loves R. Inside photo, Galluccio and U-arms entwined. Exhibit B, the cut on Capone's cheek. Witnesses said it wept not blood, but tears. Galluccio's remorse. Rose faltered, links loosening. He loved me true, but fear won. The boss would have shared me. Better dead pure. Poirot continued, voice steady as steel. Exhibit C, the river. You floated, not drowned. Galluccio held you underwater, gentle as baptism, until breath stopped. Mercy killing. The witnesses murmured agreement, eyes softening. Rose sank to knees. Then judge me. Poirot raised the chain, hourglass full again. You are free, madame. All of you. He swung the chain like lasso links whipping air. Each strike shattered a case, witnesses dissolving into light, absorbed into the pendant. Rose last touched his hand. Thank you. The truth mends. The compartment returned normal shades up fields, rolling green under blue sky. The seedling slept curled in the cup roots, quiet. Poirot removed the chain, placed it beside the plant. It belongs here now. Guard the balance. At the next stop, Chicago faded, fully train-bound east. He poured fresh tisane, sipped slow, watching the horizon. Ness would get a telegram. Thread tied. Galluccio avenged. The chain of witnesses rested, their voices silent, but the echoes lingered faint as wind. In Paris, Georges greeted him at Gare du Nord, umbrella, ready against spring mist. Home, sir. Poirot nodded. For now. That night in his flat, the valise opened itself. Seedling and chain entwined, growing together, vines wrapping links into lattice. A single black rose bloomed, petals edged gold. Poirot watered it with tisane. The secret courtroom, far away yet close as heartbeat, waited for no man. But Hercule Poirot prepared, always one step ahead, grey cells eternal. Chapter 7. The Mirror of Verdicts. The black rose bloomed, overnight petals unfurling like secrets in the dark. Poirot woke to its scent, heavy and sweet, filling the Paris flat. Georges stood at the window curtains, drawn back, sun spilling gold across parquet. Monsieur the plant, it speaks. Poirot rose, slippers silent, approached the table. The rose had grown tall, stem thick as a wrist, thorns sharp as memory. At its heart, the mirror pendant from the chain, now embedded glass facing outward. The surface rippled not with reflection, but with motion. A courtroom, vast and empty save for a single bench. Poirot leaned close, breath fogging the glass. The mirror of verdicts, he murmured. It judges the judge. The mirror pulsed. A crack appeared, spiderweb fine, then widened into a doorway framed in rosewood. Beyond lay the courtroom ceiling, lost in shadow, floor polished obsidian, reflecting torchlight that came from nowhere. Poirot stepped through, cane tapping, echo sharp. The door sealed behind him, rose vanishing. 12 seats ringed the room, not jury box, but thrones, each occupied by a version of himself. One in London fog deer stalker, hat pipe clenched. Another in desert robes, turban white as bone. A third in naval uniform, medals gleaming. They turned as one, eyes identical, grey yet ancient. The London Poirot spoke first. Welcome, brother. You are summoned to face your verdicts. The naval Poirot added. Every case you closed, every soul you weighed. Here they return. The centre bench, rows empty gavel of ivory waiting. Poirot took his place, the thrones shifting to face him. A screen of smoke formed before each alternate self. Images played silent, yet deafening. London Poirot showed a murderer hanged on his testimony, man later proven innocent by new evidence. Desert Poirot revealed a tribal chief exiled for a crime committed by his son Poirot, choosing law over mercy. Naval Poirot displayed a mutineer shot at dawn, confession forged to save the ship. Each scene ended with the accused dissolving into smoke sucked into the gavel. Poirot felt the weight ivory growing heavier with every life. The first throne spoke. Case 1, the Orient Express. You sent Ratchet to death knowing the jury of 12 acted as one. Was it justice or vengeance? Poirot gripped the gavel. The law failed. They restored balance. Innocent. Smoke billowed, the London Poirot nodding approval, then fading. The Desert Throne next. The Oasis poisoning. You condemned the girl for love. She drank to save her brother. Poirot closed eyes, memory sharp as sand. I saw guilt where devotion lived. Guilty. Black smoke coiled, the desert self crumbling to dust. One by one, the thrones emptied. A Poirot in top hat from a music hall murder. Another in trench coat from wartime espionage. Each presented a case twisted by pride, haste, arrogance. Poirot judged himself without mercy. Innocent for the spy who died to protect secrets. Guilty for the actress poisoned by jealousy he ignored. The gavel cracked with each strike, ivory splitting veins of gold bleeding light. The room shrank, walls closing until only 3 thrones remained. The original secret courtroom Poirot, the echo boy grown tall, and the final self, cloaked in shadow face, unseen. The secret courtroom Poirot stood bench, now thorns. You entered my domain uninvited, dissolved my untouchables, broke my ledger. State your defense. Poirot met his own eyes cold as the cavern. Your court fed on fear, not truth. I brought order. The echo boy stepped forward, voice soft. You freed me, yet left the seed. It grows in Paris. Will you judge it too? Poirot looked at the gavel, now half dust. The seed is potential. Good or ill depends on the gardener. The shadow self rose tall as nightmare. I am the verdict you fear most, the case you never solved. Your own death. The screen showed Poirot, old frail alone in the flat, rose-withered mirror cracked. No Georges, no Ness, no little grey cells to save him. Heart simply stops. The shadow extended a hand. Strike guilty and join us eternal. Strike innocent and live knowing the end comes unseen. Poirot lifted the broken gavel pieces sharp in palm. He placed them on the bench side by side. I refuse both. The verdict is unfinished. Life is the trial. Death the recess. The room trembled. Thorns retracted. The shadow self hissed, then dissolved into the mirror pendant, now whole again. The echo boy smiled last time. You win by not playing. The thrones crumbled to petals, rose, and black swirling into the air. The courtroom folded inward until Poirot stood alone in his flat morning light. Normal and warm. The rose bloomed full, a mirror pendant, hanging from a thorn chain intact. He touched it, cool, now silent. Georges entered with breakfast tray. You spoke in your sleep, sir, of courts and mirrors. Poirot poured tea. Dreams, mon ami. Only dreams. But that night the mirror glowed faint. A single word etched across the glass. Soon. Poirot covered it with silk scarf. The little grey cells noted the warning, filed it neat as a pin. Outside, Paris slept, unaware that its most famous detective had judged his own soul, and found it wanting yet worthy. The mirror of verdicts waited patient as time for the next reflection. Chapter 8. The silence between gavels Paris smelled of fresh croissants and rain-washed stone. Poirot walked the Seine at dawn, the river a dull pewter under low cloud. The mirror pendant lay heavy beneath his waistcoat chain, cool yet watchful. He paused at Pont Neuf, leaned on the parapet watching barges slide past. A newspaper floated by headlines screaming of a banker found dead in his vault throat, opened by his own letter opener. No theft, no struggle, only a single black rose on the blotter. Poirot straightened. The court travels. He took a cab to the banker's mansion in the 16th arrondissement gates, wrought iron and grief. Police milled about useless. Inspector Japp met him at the door, moustache drooping like wilted fern. Hercule, old friend, thought you were on holiday. Poirot stepped inside marble, echoing underfoot. Holiday ends when death knocks, mon ami. Show me. The study was oaken leather corpse slumped over desk blood, long dried to rust. The rose lay wilted, now petals edged gold. Japp pointed. Suicide, they say, but the cut is too clean. Left-handed man, right-handed wound. Poirot bent close magnifying glass catching light. Not suicide. Message. He lifted the rose-thorn pricking finger. A drop of blood fell onto the banker's ledger open beside the body. Ink bloomed. Witness required. The room darkened, though noon sun blazed outside. Walls peeled back like theatre curtains, revealing the mirror of verdicts, now life-size, framed in the banker's own gold. The glass showed not the study, but a vast library stacks climbing to infinity. Books bound in skin spines, titled with names. The banker stood in the centre, alive, eyes wide. "Detective, you came!" Poirot stepped through mirror rippling like water. Japp called after him, voice muffled, then gone. The library smelled of dust and verdict. Shelves shifted, forming aisles. The banker wrung hands. "I judged men by numbers, ruined thousands. The court offers appeal. One witness." You, Poirot, walked the aisles, books whispering. He pulled one at random, pages filled with ledgers, debts called in, lives crushed. Another book, poems written by a child starved in a workhouse, the banker's factory. Each volume a life weight found wanting. The banker followed, pleading, "I can pay. Gold, power." Poirot closed a book gently. "Payment is truth, monsieur. Tell me the worst." The banker sank to knees. "I bribed judges, fixed juries, sent innocents to hang so my rivals fell." The library trembled, shelves leaning inward. Books opened, alone pages flipping to blank. Ink drained into the floor, spelling guilty in looping script. A gavel appeared on a pedestal, obsidian and silent. No judge, no jury. Only Poirot and the banker. "Strike," the banker begged. "End it." Poirot lifted the gavel. It weighed nothing, yet everything. He saw the man's childhood hunger driving ambition, fear, cloaked as greed. Innocent. The gavel refused to fall. The banker wept. Then what? Poirot placed the gavel down. "Live with it. Every dawn remember their names." The library froze. Books slammed shut. The banker dissolved into light, sucked into the gavel, now warm in Poirot's hand. The study returned, normal, Japp blinking. "You vanished for a second." Poirot pocketed the obsidian gavel, small as a river stone. "Opticale illusion, mon ami." Case closed. He left the rose on the desk, thorn bandaged with handkerchief. Outside, the cab waited, to the flat Georges. The driver nodded. Traffic parted, as if the city itself exhaled. In the flat, the black rose had doubled in size, mirror pendant, glowing soft. Poirot placed the obsidian gavel beside the teacup. The seedling absorbed its roots, curling around stone. Leaves shivered. A new thorn grew, bearing a tiny silver scale. Balance. That night the mirror showed not courtroom, but Paris itself, streets empty, silent. Every window reflected a different Poirot judging sleeping souls. He covered the mirror again. Silk scarf, heavier now. Morning brought a letter, no stamp, no address, only wax seal of a gavel. Inside one line, "The silence gathers." Poirot burned it in the sink ashes, swirling like black snow. He dressed for the opera, cape lined scarlet. Georges raised brow. "Evening out, sir." Poirot smiled. "One must maintain appearances. The little grey cells listen best to music." At the Palais Garnier, chandeliers blazed, voices soared in Puccini. Poirot took his box alone, binoculars idle. During intermission he slipped backstage corridors, dim and velvet. A stagehand directed him to dressing room 7, door ajar. Inside, a soprano mid-note throat opened rose black in her hand. She fell forward, costume pooling blood. Poirot caught her pulse faint. He pressed handkerchief to wound, whispered, "Hold fast, madame." The mirror pendant burned. The room shifted to the library again, but now filled with singers, actors, stagehands, all bleeding from self-inflicted cuts roses clutched. They chanted in harmony, "Witness us, judge us, Poirot stood centre, gavel in hand. One by one they told stories. The tenor who poisoned his rival, the dancer who pushed another downstairs, the director who buried scandals in concrete. Each confession a note in minor key. Poirot weighed mercy against justice, innocent, for the seamstress who sewed poison into a costume to save her child from the stage. Guilty for the critic who ruined lives with ink. The gavel struck true, each time the library shrinking until only the soprano remained wound, healed eyes clear. You chose life for me. Why? Poirot tucked a stray curl behind her ear. Talent is rare, madame. Waste not. The library dissolved. He returned to his box applause, thundering final act. The soprano sang stronger voice soaring over orchestra. No one noticed the blood on the stage, washed away by tears. Backstage later, she pressed the black rose into his hand, now white petals pure. Thank you. Poirot bowed. Sing for the silent. Home by moonlight, the teacup plant had grown into a small tree mirror, embedded in trunk scales balanced perfect. The obsidian gavel gone merged. Poirot watered it with tisane. The city slept, but the silence between gavels grew thicker, waiting for the next strike. He left the curtains open, moon silver on leaves. The little grey cells dreamed of verdicts yet to come. Chapter 9. The scales in the rain began at 4 in the morning. Soft at first. Then needles against the windows of Poirot's flat. He stood at the glass in silk dressing gown, watching the street lamps blur into halos. The tree in the teacup had become a sapling overnight, its trunk thick as his wrist. The mirror pendant now a perfect oval set deep in the bark, like a knot in oak. The silver scale hung from a low branch, balanced so exactly that not even the storm's breath disturbed it. On the left pan lay a single black petal. On the right, a drop of rain that refused to fall. Poirot touched the glass. The drop trembled but held. Balance, he whispered. For how long? Georges entered with coffee and the Morning Post. A thick envelope, cream stock, no stamp, sealed with wax the colour of dried blood. Inside, a photograph, the soprano from the opera, standing centre stage, throat unmarked, eyes wide with terror. Behind her, the entire chorus held black roses to their own necks. On the reverse, ink still wet. Tonight, Opéra Bastille. Bring the scales. Poirot folded the photo with care. Tell the concierge I require a car at dusk. Georges bowed, worry creasing his brow, but asked nothing. The storm worsened. By noon the Seine had risen, licking at the quays. Poirot spent the hours in the library of his mind, pacing between shelves of memory. He recalled every case where mercy had tipped the scale, every time justice had demanded blood. The little grey cells, arranged them like chess pieces. The banker who lived with ghosts. The soprano who sang with borrowed breath. The child who became the echo. Each verdict a weight on the pans. He opened the valise, removed the black rose from the soprano, now white, and placed it beside the sapling. The petal on the left pan darkened to match. Dusk came early, violet and bruised. The car, a black Citroën, waited under the awning. Poirot wore his heaviest cape, collar turned up, the silver scale in a velvet pouch against his heart. The driver battled flooded streets, wipers frantic. At the Opera Bastille, the plaza stood ankle-deep in water, spotlights cutting through rain like searchlights over a prison yard. The marquee read, "L.A. Traviata, sold out." Yet the lobby was empty, velvet ropes swaying in wind that should not exist indoors. Poirot stepped through the main doors. They slammed behind him, locks clicking like teeth. The grand staircase had become a waterfall, marble steps cascading upward into darkness. He climbed, cane tapping rhythm against the flood. Each landing revealed a new tableau frozen mid-performance. On the first, the tenor clutched a prop goblet, wine frozen in a crimson arc. On the second, Violetta lay on a chaise, consumptive yet alive, eyes pleading. On the third, the orchestra pit brimmed with black water, violins floating like drowned birds. At the top, the royal box had transformed into the secret courtroom. Velvet walls now stone, chandelier a ring of torches. The soprano waited center stage, costume soaked, hair plastered to her skull. Around her stood the chorus, 50 voices, each with a black rose pressed to jugular. Their throats pulsed in perfect unison, a silent heartbeat. The sapling from his flat now towered behind them, roots cracking the stage, mirror facing the audience of one. Poirot. The silver scale hung from a branch, Pan's level. The soprano spoke, voice amplified yet intimate. You brought the scales. Good. The court demands equilibrium. One life for every verdict you spared. She gestured. The chorus raised roses higher. Skin parted without sound, blood welling in perfect beads, suspended like rubies on thread. Poirot stepped onto the stage, water to his knees. Name the price. The soprano's eyes filled with storm. 50 spared. 50 owed. Begin with me. She lifted her rose. Poirot raised a hand. Wait. He opened the velvet pouch, placed the white petal from the previous night onto the left pan. The scale dipped, then righted. One life remembered, one debt acknowledged. The soprano's cut sealed, bead of blood reabsorbed. The chorus murmured, a chord of relief. He moved among them, touching each rose in turn. The banker's ghost whispered from a tenor's throat. I paid in shame. Poirot placed a memory, a ledger page torn and burned onto the scale. Balance. A dancer confessed pushing her rival. Poirot laid the broken heel of a slipper. Balance. A stagehand admitted rigging lights to fall. Poirot offered the splintered beam, sanded smooth. One by one, 50 debts settled, not with blood, but with truth made tangible. The scale never tipped. It simply grew heavier, both pans sinking equally under the weight of honesty. The final singer, a boy no older than 12, held a rose to his own tiny neck. I saw programs the night the massacre was planned, knew the men, said nothing. Poirot knelt, eye level. You were hungry. Silence would feed your sisters. The boy nodded, tears mixing with rain. Poirot removed the photograph from his pocket, the one delivered that morning, placed it on the scale. The image showed the boy handing a program to Nitty, eyes downcast. The paper yellowed, curled, became ash. Balance. The boy's rose withered to dust, his throat unmarked. The soprano approached last. The debt is paid. But the court requires one final witness. She pointed to the mirror in the tree. It showed Poirot himself on the night he arrived in Chicago, stepping off the train, eyes bright with certainty. The image spoke. You judged us all. Now judge the judge. The scale trembled, pans empty. The soprano continued. Strike yourself guilty, and the court dissolves forever. Strike innocent, and it follows you always, growing with every verdict. Poirot looked at the chorus. Now free. Roses gone. Throats whole. He looked at the sapling. Roots drinking the flood. He lifted the silver scale from the branch. Held it level in both hands. I choose neither. He placed the scale on the stage floor. With deliberate care, he unclasped the mirror pendant from the tree, set it atop the scale. The pans dipped, then rose. The mirror reflecting not his face but the empty opera house, seats filled with shadows of every soul he had ever judged. Innocent, guilty, forgiven. The reflections stood, bowed and faded. The scale cracked down the middle, halves falling away. The mirror shattered into silver rain that joined the storm outside. The stage lights flickered, then blazed normal. The chorus gasped, suddenly aware, costumes dry, stage intact. The soprano embraced Poirot, whisper fierce. You broke the cycle. He patted her back. Cycles reform, madame, but now they turn on truth, not fear. The tree shrank, folding into itself, becoming the teacup sapling once more. Mirror gone, scale gone. Only a single white rose blooming where the pendant had been. Outside, the rain had stopped. The plaza steamed under sudden sun. Poirot walked through the lobby, past ushers who would remember nothing but a power outage. In the Citroën he opened the valise. The sapling slept, white rose fragrant, He clipped it, placed it in his buttonhole. Home, Georges. The driver turned the key. Paris unfolded clean and glittering, the Seine back in its banks, the city breathing easy for the first time since Chicago. That night, Poirot dined alone, seul Meunière and Sancerre. Georges served in silence. When the plates were cleared, Poirot opened the newspaper. Front page, mysterious blackout. At opera, performance resumes to standing ovation. No mention of blood, roses, or scales. He folded the paper, placed the white rose between pages as a bookmark. The little grey cells for once were still. The secret courtroom had followed him across an ocean, through mirrors and storms, only to dissolve in the rain. Yet in the quiet between heartbeats he heard it, the soft creak of a gavel, far away, waiting for the next case. He smiled, poured a final glass, and toasted the empty chair opposite. Tu balances, mon ami. Always to balance. Chapter 10. The final gavel. The white rose lasted 3 days in the newspaper, petals crisp as fresh linen. On the 4th morning, Poirot found it withered to ash. The headline beneath it faded to blank. He swept the dust into his palm, let the wind take it from the balcony. Paris below moved in its usual rhythm. Horns, bicycles, the low hum of a city that had never known the secret courtroom. Yet the flat felt hollow, the air too still. Georges polished silver with unnecessary vigour. The teacup sat empty on the table, soiled dry, no trace of sapling or thorn. At noon the concierge knocked, eyes wide. Monsieur, a package. No address, just your name in red ink. The box was small, mahogany, corners bound in brass. Poirot carried it to the table, opened it with the same letter opener that had once slit a banker's throat in another life. Inside lay a gavel, ivory handle, head of polished obsidian, resting on black velvet. Beneath it, a single card. Midnight, Place de la Concorde. Bring only yourself. He recognized the obsidian. The banker's gavel melted and recast. Recognized the ivory. The jury of one, splintered and reborn. Recognized the handwriting. His own. Midnight came cold and clear, the obelisk a dark needle against stars. The square stood empty, fountains silent, traffic lights blinking for no one. Poirot walked the centre, cane silent on wet stone. At the base of the obelisk, a circle had been etched, 12 feet across. Perfect. Within it, every artifact he had ever touched in the secret courtroom lay arranged like a clock face. Pomme clock, the matchbook from the St. Valentine's garage. Fen plus Mary 1 o'clock the green glass vial, arsenic still swirling. O'clock the child's teddy bear, eyes sewn with Capone's bribe money. O'clock the piano key, blood long dried. O'clock the ledger page, 47 thumbprints glowing. O'clock the broken mirror shard, reflecting nothing. O'clock the silver scale, pans fused. O'clock the white rose petal, now black again. O'clock the Echo Boy's driftwood gavel, whole 9 o'clock, the banker's letter opener, blade clean. O'clock the soprano's sequin, torn from her costume. O'clock the train ticket, Chicago to New York, punched twice. At the centre, the new gavel waited upright, handle buried in stone as if grown there. Poirot stepped into the circle. The city vanished. No lights, no sound, only the circle and the clock of evidence. The gavel pulsed once. 12 figures materialized at the hours. Every soul he had judged, dissolved, freed or damned. Bugs Moran at 12, chest still bleeding. Rose O'Malley at 4, throat unmarked. The Echo Boy at 8, no longer a child, but a man in a bartender's vest. Elliot Ness at 6, trench coat dry, eyes clear. They spoke as one. Voices braided. You carried us across an ocean, through mirrors and storms. You weighed us on scales that never tipped. You broke every court that tried to own you. Now the final truth, the secret courtroom was never beneath Chicago. It was never in Paris. It was always inside you. The gavel rose from the stone, floating to Poirot's hand. It was warm, familiar. his own pulse in ivory and obsidian. Every verdict you rendered was a piece of yourself you surrendered. The untouchables were your fear of chaos. The ledger was your guilt. The echo boy was your lost innocence. The scales were your pride. The mirrors were your doubt. Strike the gavel one last time. Judge the judge, end the court, or become it forever. Poirot looked at each face. Moran nodded, bullet holes closing. Rose smiled, sequins catching starlight that wasn't there. Ness lit a cigarette, ash falling upward. The boy offered a hand, palm clean. He understood. The secret courtroom had never been a place. It was the space between his little grey cells and his heart, where order met mercy, where certainty met doubt. Every case he solved left a scar. Every life he saved or condemned carved a new chamber. Chicago was the catalyst, not the origin. The court had followed him since the first murder he ever solved, growing with every verdict, feeding on the tension between justice and compassion. He raised the gavel, not to strike, but to break. With both hands he snapped it across his knee. Ivory shattered. Obsidian exploded into black snow. The circle flared white, artifacts dissolving into light. The 12 figures stepped forward, each placing a hand on his shoulder, his chest, his forehead. Warmth flooded him. Not judgment, but release. You are not the court, you are the balance. The light collapsed inward, folding the circle, the square, the night into a single point. When it opened again, Poirot stood alone on the balcony of his flat. Dawn painting the sky rose and gold. In his hand lay the white rose, fresh, dewed, thornless. The teacup on the table held only soil, rich and dark, waiting for new seed. Georges entered with coffee. "You were on the balcony all night, sir." Poirot smiled. The first unguarded smile in months. "I was closing a case, mon ami. The longest of my life." He placed the rose in the soil. It took root instantly, stem climbing, leaves unfurling. No mirror, no scale, only green. That afternoon he walked to the Seine, bought a newspaper, read of a pickpocket caught, a diplomat honoured, a child saved from the river, ordinary miracles. He folded the paper, tucked the rose inside as a bookmark, and boarded the train to Brussels. Another case, another city, another soul in need of order. Behind him, the flat stood quiet. The teacup plant grew toward the window, leaves catching sunlight. And somewhere, in the space between heartbeats, the secret courtroom dissolved forever, not destroyed, but completed. Its final verdict: Hercule Poirot, innocent of everything but trying. The little grey cells, at last, were still. The end. And now, dear viewer, if this tale of hidden courts and unbreakable balance gripped your soul, smash that like button, subscribe for more shadows and truths, and comment your favourite twist below. Your support means the world. Until the next case, au revoir.